Hello and welcome to the Essex Boys Murder Case Part 41. Before watching this video, I recommend watching Part 4 onwards on YouTube first, as these videos are all about the key individuals and the murder victims' movements on the day of the 6th of December 1995. As always, a quick mention to the Facebook page called The Real Essex Boys Murder Club. If you're interested, please feel free to join, as there's some great people on there with a lot of knowledge on this subject. Now, this video today will be about Mick and Jack and how the hit went down that night and the pact they made prior to the murders. Now, just before I start, I will give you a quick catch up to where I got up to with these Day of the Murder videos. Darren Nichols has received a call from Jack to come and pick them up. He's then driven from to the entrance of the farm track, and now the Passat is facing back the way it has just driven up, looking towards the Rettendon Turnpike. Jack has climbed into the back of the Passat, covered in splatters of blood, and he still has his Chippy Bag he brought with him. Now, within this time, there must have been a conversation between the two, as Mick Steele had not got up the lane yet. But anyway, eventually, Mick Steele appears and climbs into the front passenger seat. The time is approximately 7:05 PM. I'm also going on Darren Nichols' second statement with these Day of the Murder videos. Right, back to this video and the pact Mick and Jack allegedly made prior to the triple murders. Now, according to Darren Nichols, Mick Steele asked him to get hold of a gun for him. Rumours were going around the criminal fraternity that Nichols was after a firearm, and a person by the name of Roy French contacted Darren Nichols and said he could get hold of any gun he wanted, as he had a contact in Canning Town. I've spoken about Roy French in a previous video, part 31. In that video, I spoke about the two conflicting versions of events, where Darren Nichols said in an earlier police interview that Mick Steele had asked him if he knew anyone who could get a gun for him. And Darren Nichols said he'd asked Roy French, who had a gun for shooting rabbits, but he could not get hold of a gun for him. So that was the end of that. Then we have Roy French saying later that Darren Nichols asked him if he could get hold of a gun for him. When asked what type of gun he wanted, Darren Nichols replied that he did not mind, just as long as it was reliable and held plenty of rounds. A week later, Roy French contacted Darren Nichols to say he could indeed get a gun for him, but Darren Nichols had changed his mind and no longer said he wanted one. Was Darren Nichols given his version of events to distance himself from being involved in the actual murders? Was Roy French telling the truth about his version of events? I mean, it seems more plausible to me. A week after the murders, a traveller called Matty called round at Darren Nichols' house in Braintree and tried to sell him a 9-shot pump-action shotgun. Nichols told him he'd ring his friend straight away and find out if he still needed one. Nichols rang Mick Steele and told him about the guy at his door trying to sell him a shotgun, and told Mick Steele there's no point in buying one now. According to Darren Nichols, Mick Steele said, "Buy it anyway. We don't need suspicion." Nichols bought the shotgun and 3 cartridges that came with it, along with a brown case. It was bought for £350, and Darren Nichols then took it to Mick Steele's place. This shotgun which Darren Nichols bought off the traveller called Matty, is the one that was found at Mixdale's place in the loft at Meadow Cottage when the police decided to make arrests in connection with the triple murders. If you remember, it was called Operation Century. So this gun was bought a week after the murders and could not have been used in the actual murders. And with no forensics linked to the murders, these charges were dropped against Mixdale. The traveller, Matty, kept going round to Darren Nichols' place trying to buy the gun back, but he told him he couldn't. Darren Nichols' wife was getting so annoyed with the traveller calling around asking to buy the gun back. So to me, she definitely knew what her husband was like and what he was into, even though she denies this in the Supergrass TV documentary. Just before I move on with this video, I'd just like to go back to Roy French, who was an acquaintance of Darren Nichols, and Nichols asked Roy French if he could get a firearm for him. Now, this is where it gets interesting, as Roy French was also a user of the Volkswagen Passat. He has driven the vehicle Darren Nichols says was the getaway car. Now, the police did interview him and asked him if he had ever put any firearms in that vehicle when he used the Passat. He strenuously denied ever putting any firearms in the Passat when he used that vehicle. Now, from this information, we know Roy French was in a police station helping them with their inquiries. So when the Passat was recovered, the forensics must have found residue from a gun in the back of the Volkswagen Passat. They're interviewing Roy French about this, and he's used the Passat in the past. Dave Trunley, who I've spoken about in previous videos, he was actually a previous owner of the Passat who had access to shotguns, as he was an avid clay pigeon shooter. The shotgun was the preferred weapon of choice to kill Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. On clay pigeon shoots, the blue cartridge is used. Blue cartridge shells were found at the scene of the crime. I do hope both of them, these men, Roy French and Dave Trunley, were thoroughly interviewed in connection with these murders, as either of them could have been involved that night. Either of them could have been down the track with Jack that night. Darren Nichols knew both Dave Trunley and Roy French. In order to ask these two people if they have ever taken a gun in the Passat they've been in, then the police have found gun residue in the back of the Passat and are trying to eliminate people from their inquiries. They would not have brought in Dave Trunley and Roy French if they had not found any gun residue in the back of the getaway car. Was it Jack's shotgun residue that was found in the back of the Passat? According to Darren Nichols, he said Jack had grounded his shotgun down at his workplace using a plasma cutter machine, so his gun could not be tested. Did Dave Trunley and Roy French bring their firearms in to be tested against the gun residue found in the back of the Passat? After Roy French had spoken to the police, he then becomes a confidential witness for the prosecution. There is no police statement from Roy French, who had access to the Volkswagen Passat and had access to firearms. There is no police statement from Dave Trunley, who owned the Passat previously and had access to shotguns. Both these people knew Darren Nichols. So, moving on this video, I will now discuss the ballistics report. According to the forensic scientist, John Burns, he said the 7 cartridge cases were 12 bore Vantage cartridges loaded with lead shot. He then examined the firing marks on all 7 cartridges microscopically and was satisfied that all 7 were fired using the same firearm, which he said was almost certainly a pump action or self-loading 12 bore shotgun. He also concluded that the weapon, probably a pump or self-loading gun, had a large capacity magazine. The likelihood of a large capacity magazine and the appearance of the firing wad suggested the use of a gun with a full-length barrel. So all the shells found at the crime scene were fired from the same gun. One shotgun was used to kill all 3 men. Now, having seen the crime scene photos and read the forensic scientist's evidence, I would agree with what he's concluded with the shotgun wadding and the gunshot wounds. I'd say a long barrel shotgun was used, and it had to be a self-loading gun with a large magazine capacity, because all 3 had to be taken out straight away. I doubt the killer or killers would take a chance using a shotgun which fired 2 shots, then had to manually reload it to kill the 3rd person. It's not practical to do, so a self-loading shotgun was definitely needed. The pathologist also said there were no defence wounds, so they never saw it coming. Tony Tucker and Pact still had their mobiles in their hands. Craig Rolfe had his hands on the steering wheel with his foot on the drive pedal. So to me, I highly doubt a double-barrel shotgun was used to kill 2 of them whilst the other person stood over the other one pointing a gun whilst the other manually reloaded the shotgun. The element of surprise was used in this ambush, and all 3 men never saw this hit coming. So yes, I believe a long single-barrel shotgun was used, which was self-loading with a large magazine capacity to take all 3 men out. So a double-barrelled shotgun where you have to manually reload it's out of the question. A sawn off at close range would take half of their heads off. I mean, not just half of their faces blasted. I mean half of their heads removed. I mean, that's why they saw the barrels of shotguns to create maximum damage. They literally saw them off, so it'll literally, when you fire it, it'll literally blow a man's head off at close range. Now, long barrel shotguns would be more precise when it was pointed at them. Obviously, I mean, it's going to cause damage, but the wounds would be more rounded, just like in the crime scene photos. I don't want to go into depth about the crime scene in this video, as I want to concentrate on the pact between Mick and Jack before the triple murders. I am thinking of doing another crime scene video to go with these Day of the Murder videos. I mean, I did make one prior to these Day of the Murder videos. I think it was my 3rd video. But I'm definitely thinking about making a crime scene video. I just don't know when I'm going to fit it in. Another reason I think a long barrel shotgun was used is a part of Dan Nichols' statement. He said Jack had a gun in the Chippy Bag. First of all, he said he pulled up at the track entrance. He got out and said to him, Go wait somewhere close and I'll phone you when I've done. Now, this is a chippy bag similar to the one Darren Nichols saw Jack use on the night of the murders. It's used by carpenters, and as you can see, they are quite long and could fit a long barrel shotgun in one of these bags. When Darren Nichols received the call to come and pick them up, he pulled up at the track entrance and Jack got into the back of the Volkswagen with the chippy bag. He said Jack had splatters of blood all over him. He asked where Mick was and Jack replied, "He won't be long, he's dropped something." In a later statement, Darren Nichols said Mick Steele's gun fell apart, so it couldn't have been used in the murders. When Jack and Mick were walking up the track, Mick Steele apparently said to Jack, "I'm going back for the gun." And this is the reason Mick Steele got into the car moments or so later. This could explain why Mick Steele told Darren Nichols later on in the evening that Jack shot them. He was cold and just shot them. This would go along with the cartridge shells used to kill Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, as they all came from the same gun. It would be interesting to look at the first statement and see if Darren Nichols said both guns were used for the killings. And then if Darren Nichols was told one gun was used to kill all three men, and the police help him make a second statement to fit this information in to make the case stronger. So where did Mick and Jack get the gun or guns from to commit these murders? Mick Steele had been asking weeks before the murders were committed if Darren Nichols could ask about to see if he could get hold of a gun for him. If Mick and Jack committed the Rettendon Range Rover murders, where did they get their guns from? Now, there is an article in the Daily Mail by the journalist Tony Thompson, which he did after the murders with Darren Nichols. If you don't know who Tony Thompson is, he's the journalist who was supposedly sneaking into the prison where Nichols was when he was awaiting the trial for the Rettendon Range Rover murders. This was so a book deal could be done shortly after the trial, which was Blogs 19. He also ghostwritten the book too. So this is part of the article. I think it was from the The Guardian. You can always look it up on Google if you want to read the whole of it. Just type in Darren Nichols, My Life as a Supergrass, and then you can view it all. But it is quite lengthy, so what I'm going to do is read parts that are relevant to this video. I think I knew all along that they were going to do it. 6 weeks before the murders, Steele had asked me to get him a gun. He said Jack had a couple, but they did not want to use them. I asked a few people but didn't come up with anything. Then, as soon as it happened, I said to myself, "You stupid bastard. That was really bloody obvious." I know if I hadn't turned up that evening, it probably would not have happened. I suppose I just didn't want to believe they were capable of that. Now, and I just wonder how much Darren Nichols got paid for that article. So just a few things to pick up on the article. If it happened like he said it did in all his police interviews and statement in the court transcripts, then I'd say he knew weeks ago that all three of them were going to commit murder. I mean, he says in this article that Mick Steele asked him to get a gun for him. I mean, I think Mick and Jack could not get hold of any shotguns and decided to use Jack's shotguns, what he actually owned. I mean, these shotguns Jack had would not have been registered due to him having a criminal record, so he would not have been able to own guns legally. They decided that after the murders they would be grounded down at Jack's workplace using his plasma cutting machine, which practically turned him into dust. The gun that Darren Nichols was asking Roy French to get hold of was probably for him, and when Roy French finally said he could get a shotgun for someone he knew in Canning Town, he bottled it and told him he no longer needed one anymore. With all three of them planning what they were going to do on that night, the recce's had been done. Mick and Jack deciding to use the unlicensed ones Jack had, and the actual day that had been chosen for the executions. A few days or so before the actual day of the murders, Darren Nichols tells Mick Steele and Jack that his contact could not get hold of a shotgun after all, but he would still do the driving for them. He was still fully committed of helping Mick and Jack of getting rid of Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, and even Ian Spindler, Darren Nichols' arch enemy, if he could have. He just wasn't going to do the shootings. I mean, Darren Nichols couldn't say this, as he could not be used as a supergrass because he was too involved in the murders. He would have had prior knowledge of the murders taking place. He would have played his role in the murders and would have participated through the joint enterprise law. The joint enterprise, he would not be able to become a supergrass and testify against Mick Steele and Jack Wilms at the trial. The police knew this after his first set of statements, so they had to help Darren Nichols with a new statement, fitting the phone log evidence, one gun being used instead of two, the time of his journey. I mean, if you go through all of Darren Nichols' police statements, his interviews and his book, I mean, not forgetting the Guardian newspaper article, he's blended fact with fiction. So, 2 guns were taken to the scene according to Darren Nichols' statement. Is it a coincidence Jack owned 2 shotguns? Darren Nichols never said where Mick and Jack got their shotguns from. Like I said earlier, did they try and get hold of 2 shotguns, but time was running out and they had no choice but to use Jack's shotguns? I mean, after all, they were unlicensed guns. After the murders, Jack grinds them down using a machine at his workplace and turns them into dust. I mean, there's no firearms from the murders to track back to them. No ballistic test can be carried out to see if these guns were the ones used to commit the murders by testing them with cartridges found at the crime scene. So, just going back to the forensic scientist report, John Burns said a long-barrel shotgun was probably used due to the impact of the shotgun wounds. A long-barrel shotgun would be about 4 foot long. Going back to the Chippy Bag Darren Nichols described Jack brought with him that night was just over 4 foot. I think it was green in colour. The long-barrelled gun would fit into the Chippy Bag. Did this Chippy Bag have the shotgun Mick Still was to use? Or was there only one gun brought for the executions? Did Mick and Jack make a pact that they would both kill Tucker, Tate and Rolfe using the same gun, so if they were both arrested for the murders, neither could blame the other? I'm going to leave that thought there for you before I finish up with this video. What I've decided to do is split the pact between Mick and Jack prior to the murders into a three-parter, as there is a lot to cram into this part of the case. In the next video I will discuss how Darren Nichols got out of being an actual executioner but kept himself involved in taking out Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. I will also be going through a part of his second statement and discuss what he says which doesn't make sense if he had no knowledge of the murders taking place that night. Thank you to all the YouTube subscribers. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and the Pact Part 2 shouldn't be too long away. Also, the YouTube subscribers, you get to see my videos first, as I wait a week before posting them on the Facebook group. Talking of the group, a quick mention. If you want to join, it's called The Real Essex Boys Murder Club, and it's in capital letters. If you're interested, agree to the rules and answer the questions before you're approved. It's got a lot of like-minded people who are interested in the Essex Boys saga. We have numerous posts going on a daily basis. I think we have over 30,000 members now, and we're constantly having new members joining all the time. All we ask is please adhere to the rules and respect other people's opinions, as we all have our own theories of what we think happened that night. Last of all, I'd like to thank the admins who do a fantastic job of keeping the group ticking over. It's much appreciated. So until next time, take care.